The bottle of top-shelf bourbon exploded against the brick wall behind the bar, amber liquid spraying like blood from a fresh wound, soaking the faded posters of old jazz legends and the worn wooden shelves that had witnessed 1,000 broken dreams. "You waltz in here like you own the damn world, Ethan Blackwood, but you don't own me or this place." Casey's voice sliced through the humid air of the Rusty Anchor, low and gravelly, laced with a fury that had been fermenting for weeks like the overproof rum in the corner keg. Ethan froze, his silk tie suddenly a noose, as Casey's eyes, storm-gray and unyielding, locked onto his, revealing not just anger, but a vulnerability so raw it cracked the millionaire's polished facade wide open, pulling him into a truth he'd never seen coming. Ethan Blackwood had built his empire from the ashes of a Silicon Valley garage startup, turning lines of code into billions, but nothing had prepared him for the dive bar on the edge of Brooklyn's forgotten waterfront. The Rusty Anchor wasn't the kind of place where men like him lingered. It was a relic, all scuffed oak and flickering neon, smelling of stale beer and unspoken regrets. He'd stumbled in one rain-soaked autumn evening 3 months ago, fleeing a boardroom coup that threatened to topple his tech conglomerate, Blackwood Innovations. His driver had circled the block twice before dropping him at the curb, but Ethan waved him off, craving anonymity in a city that usually bent to his will. Casey Malone poured drinks like he was arm-wrestling the bottle, his broad shoulders straining against a faded flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms etched with faded tattoos, anchors and swallows, symbols of a life adrift. At 34, he was all sharp angles and quiet menace. His dark hair buzzed short on the sides, longer on top in a defiant tousle that screamed, "Don't mess." The locals called him the Tomboy Bartender, a nickname born from his no-nonsense swagger and the way he outdrank the bulliest dockworkers without breaking a sweat. It was affectionate, mostly, a nod to how he defied the soft edges everyone else wore. Ethan had misjudged him from the jump, pegged him as some straight-arrow ex-Marine, the kind who fixed Harleys on weekends and quoted Hemingway over black coffee. Tough, unapproachable, the perfect foil to Ethan's sleek, calculated world. But there was something electric in the way Casey's calloused hands slid a tumbler across the scarred bar top, his gaze lingering just a beat too long on Ethan's manicured fingers. "Rough night, suit?" He'd grunted that first time, voice like gravel under tires. Ethan, nursing a Scotch neat, had laughed it off, a hollow sound that echoed in the empty space. "You have no idea." And just like that, the hook was set. Nights blurred into rituals. Ethan would arrive after the dinner rush, shedding his Armani armor at the door, trading boardroom battles for Casey's dry wit and the burn of cheap whiskey. The bar became his confessional. Tales of venture capitalists circling like vultures, a mother who preferred stock portfolios to sons, a string of flings that fizzled faster than a faulty algorithm. Casey listened, polishing glasses with a rag that had seen better days, offering grunts or one-liners that cut deeper than therapy ever could. "Sounds like you're coding your own cage, Blackwood. Ever think of hitting delete?" Ethan chalked it up to bromance at first, the kind forged in late-night haze. But the air thickened with every exchange, the brush of knuckles when passing change, the way Casey's laugh rumbled low when Ethan cracked a self-deprecating joke about his penthouse view of nothing real. Ethan was gay, out in whispers to a select few, but closeted to the world that funded his dreams. Homophobia lingered in boardrooms like cigar smoke, and he'd learned early to compartmentalize. Casey? He seemed the antithesis, a man's man untouchable. Yet Ethan's pulse betrayed him, hammering whenever Casey leaned in to refill his glass, that faint scent of cedar and smoke invading his space. It was a Thursday in late November when the first crack appeared. The bar was half full, a mix of longshoremen nursing drafts and artists sketching on napkins. Ethan slid onto his usual stool, rain dripping from his overcoat, recounting the latest betrayal. His CFO, Marcus Hale, had been skimming funds, funneling them into a rival startup. "The man's like a brother," Ethan muttered, staring into his drink. "Or he was." Casey paused mid-pour, his back to the bar, muscles tensing under the thin cotton. "Family's a bitch, huh? They knife you deepest, 'cause they know where the ribs are." His tone was casual, but his grip on the bottle whitened his knuckles. Ethan glanced up, catching the shadow that flitted across Casey's face. Gone in an instant, replaced by that trademark smirk. Another round on the house. Drown the bastard. As the night wore on, the crowd thinned, leaving the two of them in a bubble of low jazz from the ancient jukebox. Ethan, loosened by the liquor, let slip more than he intended. The isolation of wealth, the parade of dates who saw dollar signs before dimples, the ache for something raw and unscripted. Casey wiped down the bar, movements deliberate, eyes fixed on the grain of the wood. You talk like you're the only one carrying ghosts, Ethan. But hell, we're all just trying not to let 'em drag us under. The words hung heavy, and for a moment, Ethan thought Casey might say more. Might bridge the chasm with a story of his own. Instead, he flipped the closed sign and locked the door, the click echoing like a verdict. Get some sleep, suit. Tomorrow's another war. Ethan left with more questions than answers, the rain washing his footsteps into the gutter. He didn't see the way Casey sagged against the bar once he was gone, rubbing a hand over his chest as if to soothe an old scar. Weeks passed in that delicate dance, flirtation veiled as camaraderie, tension coiling like a spring. Ethan started lingering longer, inventing excuses. A delayed flight, a craving for Casey's world-famous greasy spoon eggs at last call. The bar felt alive under Casey's command, stories etched into every creak of the floorboards. He'd inherited the rusty anchor from his uncle 5 years back, a grizzled vet who'd drunk himself into an early grave. Place was a shithole then, Casey admitted one night, flipping coasters like cards. Still is, but it's mine. Ethan envied that ownership, the tangible grit against his ethereal empire. He probed gently, where'd you grow up? Why the ink? Casey deflected with jokes or fresh pores, but Ethan caught glimpses. A Midwestern twang buried under Brooklyn bark, eyes that softened at tales of lost dogs or stray kids. It humanized him, this tomboy enigma, chipping away at Ethan's assumptions. Then came the storm. December roared in with a nor'easter, winds howling off the East River like banshees. The bar was empty save for them, power flickering as sheets of rain lashed the windows. Ethan had braved the gale on foot, his chauffeured life be damned, arriving soaked to the bone. Casey tossed him a towel without a word, the gesture intimate in its silence. Power's gonna crap out any second, Casey warned, lighting candles that cast dancing shadows across the murals of faded glory. They hunkered down with a bottle of Casey's private stash, aged scotch smuggled from some forgotten distillery, and the conversation turned reckless, barriers dissolving in the amber glow. Ethan confessed first, the words tumbling out like code gone haywire. The fear of vulnerability in a world that devoured weakness, the parade of anonymous hookups that left him hollower than before. I thought I had it all figured, money, power, the game. But it's all smoke. I want real. Someone who sees the mess and stays. Casey's laugh was bitter, a sound like cracking ice. Real? That's a luxury for folks like you. Some of us just survive. He stared into the flame, jaw set, and Ethan pressed, sensing the fracture. Tell me about the scar, Ethan said softly, nodding to the faint line peeking from Casey's collarbone, visible when his shirt shifted. Casey's hands stilled, the glass halfway to his lips. The wind screamed outside, rattling the panes, and in that suspended breath, the power died. Darkness swallowed the room, broken only by the stubborn flicker of wax. The candlelight carved Casey's face into stark relief, high cheekbones shadowed, eyes reflecting the flame like distant stars. He set the glass down with deliberate care, as if afraid it might shatter the moment. Scars nothing, bar fight, ex who couldn't take no for an answer. But his voice dipped, carrying the weight of half-truths, and Ethan leaned in, the space between them shrinking to inches, charged with the scent of rain and resolve. That's bullshit, and you know it? Ethan murmured, his own pulse a drumbeat in the quiet. You've been dodging me for weeks, Casey, like I'm just another suit passing through. Casey's gaze snapped up, fierce and unguarded. You are, or you were, but you keep coming back, stirring shit up, making me remember why I locked that door in the first place. The admission hung there, a live wire. Ethan reached out, tentative, his fingers brushing Casey's wrist, warm skin over corded muscle, a tattoo's edge rough under his thumb. Casey didn't pull away. Instead, he exhaled, long and ragged, and the dam cracked. I grew up in a nowhere town outside Pittsburgh. Casey started, voice low, as if the words were contraband. Steel mills and church steeples. Dad was foreman, Mom baked pies for the bake sale. Picture perfect, till it wasn't. He took a swig, the liquid glinting in the low light. I was the golden boy, varsity quarterback, homecoming king. But I knew early I didn't fit the jersey. Liked sneaking peeks at the guys in the locker room, not the cheer squad. Thought I could pray it away, bury it under touchdowns and beer pong. Ethan listened, breath held. The millionaire's armor dissolving in the face of this raw unspooling. He'd scripted his own coming out in therapy sessions and pride parades. But Casey's story was visceral, etched in loss. Freshman year at Penn State, I cracked. Hooked up with this guy in my dorm, quick, fumbling like stealing fire. Felt right for once. But word got out. Small campus, smaller minds. Dad drove up in his F-150, face like thunder, dragged me home by the collar. Said I was a disgrace, that I'd burn in hell unless I fixed it. Casey's fingers traced the scar absent-mindedly. Tried conversion camp that summer. Electric shocks, Bible verses screamed in my face. One night, the therapist got handsy, said it was part of the cure. I fought back, broke his nose, got this. He tugged his collar aside, revealing the jagged line, pale against tan skin. They called it an assault. I called it survival. The storm raged on, thunder punctuating the silence that followed. Ethan's chest ached, a foreign tightness. Not pity, but recognition. Jesus, Casey. I'm sorry. Don't. Casey cut in, sharp but not unkind. Pity's for strays. I got out. Dropped school, hitched to New York with $50 and a duffel. Uncle Rory took me in, taught me the bar trade. Said blood don't mean family. The anchor became home. He paused, eyes searching Ethan's face. But I shielded it all. The truth. Kept walls up so no one could gut me again. Straight acting, tough as nails, that's the armor. Tomboy Bartender, they call me. Easier than letting the world see the cracks. Ethan's hand tightened on Casey's wrist, a lifeline in the dark. I misjudged you. Thought you were untouchable, straight edge, unbreakable. But you're the most real thing I've touched in years. Casey's breath hitched, and in the candle's sway, he closed the distance. Their lips met, hesitant at first, then fierce, a collision of withheld longing. It wasn't fireworks or violins. It was hunger, hands fisting in wet shirts, the taste of scotch and salt. Casey's stubble rasped against Ethan's jaw, grounding him, while Ethan's fingers tangled in that tousled hair, pulling him closer. They broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed. The world narrowed to heartbeats sinking in the gloom. Been wanting that, Casey admitted, voice husky, a grin tugging despite the vulnerability. Since you first bitched about your merger like it was the apocalypse. Ethan chuckled, the sound muffled against Casey's neck. Should have known. Your trouble wrapped in flannel. They talked till dawn teased the horizon, the storm ebbing to a drizzle. Secrets spilled like the rain, Ethan's closeted navigation of cutthroat deals, the betrayal of a lover who'd outed him for leverage in a custody fight over a surrogate's child he'd never held. Casey shared lighter scars. The stray cat he fed behind the bar, the kid artist who sketched murals for free tips. By the time the power hummed back, something had shifted, fragile, but forged. The next weeks were a revelation. Ethan integrated Casey into his orbit, not as a side character, but a co-star. Dinners at hidden bistros where they held hands under checkered cloths. Walks along the Brooklyn Bridge where Casey's laugh drowned the traffic hum. The rusty anchor thrived under their shared energy. Ethan funneled quiet investments. New taps, a fresh coat of paint, without strings, earning Casey's wary trust. But shadows loomed. Marcus Hale, the CFO snake, hadn't slithered away clean. Ousted but vengeful, He unearthed dirt on Ethan's personal life, leaking whispers to the press. Tech titans' secret shame. Tabloids feasted, branding Ethan the closeted kingpin. Stock prices wobbling like a drunk on last call. Board members called emergency sessions. Faces pinched with corporate piety. Ethan weathered it in Casey's arms, the bar a sanctuary. "They're scared," Casey said one night, pouring fortifiers, "of what you represent, power they can't control." But the betrayal cut deeper when Marcus targeted the anchor. Through shell companies, he bought up the waterfront lots, eyeing redevelopment into luxury condos. The bar sat on prime soil, a holdout in the gentrification wave. Eviction notices arrived like poison pen letters, stamped with Hale Development LLC. Casey crumpled the paper, face ashen. "Bastard. He's coming for my home now." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Not if I can help it. I'll bury him." The fight escalated, a chess match of lawyers and loopholes. Ethan pulled strings. Lobbyists, favors owed, but Marcus played dirty, dredging Casey's past. The assault charge, twisted into violent tendencies, leaked to landlords and regulators. The bar's liquor license hung by a thread, inspections multiplying like roaches. Casey withdrew, the walls rebuilding brick by brick. "This is your world, Ethan. Cutthroat, endless. I can't drag you down, or let you drag me." "Don't," Ethan pleaded, cornering him behind the bar after hours. "We're in this, together." But doubt festered. One evening, as snow dusted the streets, Casey vanished mid-shift. A note on the register. "Need air. Don't follow." Ethan's calls went to voicemail, panic rising like bile. He found him at Coney Island, boardwalk empty under sodium lamps, staring at the winter Atlantic. Casey turned, eyes red-rimmed. "I shielded you too, you know. From me. My mess always explodes." Ethan pulled him close, coats tangling. The seas roar muffling their breaths. "Your mess is ours. Let me in." They kissed against the rail, salt wind whipping, a vow unspoken. But back at the bar, the climax brewed. Marcus struck on a Friday, the bar pulsing with its weekend crowd, laughter a fragile shield against the chill seeping through the cracks. Ethan arrived early, suit rumpled from a deposition, sliding Casey a takeout bag of dim sum from their favorite hole in the wall. "Truce offering," he quipped, but his eyes betrayed the strain. Casey managed a half-smile, bumping shoulders as he unpacked the steaming cartons. "You're spoiling me, Blackwood. Next you'll be writing poetry." "Ha! Code's more my language. But for you, I debug sonnets." The banter flowed easy, a ritual that steadied them amid the siege. Yet as the night deepened, tension coiled. Whispers rippled from the door. Suits in the booth, not locals. Marcus's lackeys scouting. The hammer fell at 11 sharp. A process server burst in, papers flapping like surrender flags, declaring eminent domain. The city, greased by Marcus's donations, claimed the land for public revitalization, code for high-rises and hipster lofts. The crowd hushed, then erupted in murmurs, fists clenching around pint glasses. Casey snatched the documents, scanning them with a surgeon's precision. "Bullshit. This is personal." His voice carried, drawing eyes. Ethan stepped forward, hand on his arm, but Casey shrugged it off, mounting the bar like a podium. "Listen up, folks. This ain't just my fight. The anchor's been your harbor through storms. Divorces, layoffs, heartbreaks. They want to erase that over my dead body." Cheers rose, ragged but real, fists pumping. Ethan watched, chest swelling with pride and something fiercer. Love, unvarnished, blooming in the chaos. But as the server slunk out, Casey's facade slipped. In the back room, amid crates of hooch and faded photos, he slumped against a keg, shoulders shaking. Ethan knelt, gathering him close. "We'll fight. Appeals, injunctions. I've got the best." Casey's laugh was hollow. "Your best? Or mine? I shielded this place from everything, creditors, ghosts. But you're the variable I didn't code for." He pulled back, eyes searching. What if I lose it all? What if I'm not enough? You're everything? Ethan whispered, cupping his face, thumbs tracing the stubble's rasp. Their kiss was desperate, an anchor in the squall, lips bruising, hands mapping familiar territories with renewed urgency, not lust but lifeline. Casey's fingers dug into Ethan's back, grounding them both. But betrayal's blade twisted deeper that weekend. Ethan returned to his tower office Sunday morning, hungover on hope, only to find Marcus waiting in the glass-walled conference room. The man was all polished menace, silver hair slicked, smile a shark's gleam. Enjoying the slumming, Ethan? That dive and its colorful proprietor. Marcus slid a dossier across the table, photos spilling. Casey in grainy stills from the camp scandal, headlines twisted to paint him as unstable. Leverage. Sign over the merger veto or this goes viral. Your board's already twitchy. Ethan's blood iced. You touch him, you touch me. We're done. Marcus leaned in, voice oily. Oh, we're just starting. I built this firm with you, brothers, remember? But you went soft. For a bar rag with baggage. He paused, eyes narrowing. Or is it the other way? Truth is, I always knew about your preferences. Used it to keep you in line. Now, it's ammunition. The confession landed like a gut punch, years of loyalty. A facade, Marcus's mentorship a leash. Ethan stormed out, dialing his team, but the damage seeped. Leaks hit the wires by noon. Casey's past splashed across financial blogs as Blackwood's liability. He raced to the bar, finding Casey amid cleanup, face drawn as he scrubbed counters like penance. Saw the feeds. It's out. Ethan's words jammed. Marcus. He knew. About me, about us. Used it all along. Casey's rag stilled. Knew and stayed silent? That's not brotherhood. That's a bomb with a timer. Pain flickered, not just for the exposure, but the echo of his own familial knife. I shielded you from my shit. But yours? It bleeds over. The argument ignited, words flying like shrapnel. You think I wanted this? I'm fighting. For us. Ethan shouted. Fighting with what? Your checkbook? This ain't code. Ethan. It's flesh and bone. Casey's voice broke, the tomboy armor fracturing. I lost everything once. Can't lose you too. But can't watch you burn for a ghost like me. The door slammed behind Ethan, the cold slapping sense into him. He wandered the waterfront, city lights mocking his unraveling empire. Calls poured in, investors bailing, PR scrambling, but none pierced like Casey's silence. Monday dawned gray, the boardroom a coliseum. Suits circled, voices droning. Rebrand the image, distance from the entanglement. Ethan stood at the head, projections flickering like ghosts. Marcus sat smug, penultimate betrayal. He'd rallied votes for a no-confidence motion. But Ethan had prepared his own code, irrefutable audits exposing Marcus's embezzlement. Backed by whistleblowers he'd quietly courted. Gentlemen, he said, voice steel. This isn't about scandals. It's about integrity. Mine and those I choose. He hit play on a drive. Marcus's own voice, recorded in hubris, plotting the smears. Chaos erupted, gasps, accusations. Marcus bolted, but security waited. As the board dissolved into recess, Ethan's phone buzzed. Casey. Anchors holding. Come home. The reconciliation was quiet, under the bar's familiar hum. Casey pulled him into the stockroom, away from prying eyes, their embrace a suture. Heard about the showdown. Balls's suit. Learned from the best. Ethan's lips brushed Casey's temple. No more shielding. We're in the light. Together. But the climax crested that night. Marcus, cornered and desperate, escalated. Arsonists torched the Anchor's storage shed at midnight, flames licking the sky like vengeance. Sirens wailed as Ethan and Casey arrived, the crowd a wall of horror. Patrons forming a bucket brigade, faces soot-streaked. Casey charged the blaze, hose in hand, until Ethan yanked him back. It's over. Let it go. Not without a fight, Casey roared, but collapsed as a beam groaned, embers swirling. In the inferno's glow, truths blazed. Casey's fear wasn't loss of wood and glass, but the erasure of sanctuary, the place where he'd rebuilt, where they'd found each other. Firefighters doused the flames, but the damage scarred. Half the bar gutted, memories ashed. As dawn broke, exhausted and entwined on the curb, Casey whispered, "What now?" Ethan squeezed Casey's hand, the gesture of vow amid the acrid smoke curling skyward. "Now, we rebuild. Better. Yours and mine." The days blurred into a frenzy of insurance claims and contractor bids. The waterfront a hive of hammers and hope. Ethan poured resources, not dominating but partnering, his tech-savvy streamlining permits while Casey's grit kept spirits high. Volunteers swarmed. The longshoremen hauling beams, the artist kid repainting murals with phoenix motifs. The rusty anchor rose, not as a relic, but a beacon. Queer nights fundraised by the community. Open mics drawing crowds who saw their stories in the rafters. Yet the emotional undercurrent simmered. Casey's exposure lingered like bruise, nightmares of old screams pulling him awake. Ethan held him through them, murmuring affirmations in the penthouse's vast bed. City lights a constellation of possibilities. "You're not that kid anymore," he'd say, tracing the scar. "You're the man who saved me." Betrayals echo-tested them. Marcus's trial loomed, a media circus dredging skeletons. Subpoenas arrived for Casey, forcing him to relive the camp horrors on stands slick with flashbulbs. Ethan testified too, his voice steady. This man weaponized pain for profit. But love? That's the real power. The courtroom drama peaked in cross-exams, Marcus sneering from the dock. "You threw away billions for a barfly fantasy. Pathetic." Ethan met his gaze, unflinching. "I threw away illusions. For truth." The jury saw through the venom. Marcus fell, convicted on fraud and extortion, his empire crumbling like bad code. Freedom tasted bittersweet. Back at the reopened anchor, a ribbon cutting drew Brooklyn's heart. Mayor with scissors, locals toasting with Casey's signature rusty mule. Ethan stood beside him, no longer the suit but the partner, their fingers laced publicly for the first time. Whispers rippled, but cheers drowned them, a chorus of acceptance. In the quiet after, atop the bar they'd salvaged together, Casey turned to Ethan, eyes soft in the string lights. "One night changed everything. That storm. You saw me. All of me." Ethan pulled him down, the kiss a seal on their shared narrative. Gentle, profound, laced with the romance of survivors. "And I'd weather 1,000 more. For this." The story didn't end in grand gestures. It unfolded in the human weave. Ethan scaled back the conglomerate, mentoring queer startups from a home office overlooking the river. Casey expanded the bar's reach, workshops for at-risk youth, a library corner stocked with stories of outcasts who thrived. They adopted a rescue mutt named Anchor, its wagging tail a daily reminder of reclaimed joy. Conflicts arose, as they do. Ethan's wanderlust clashing with Casey's rootedness, old insecurities flaring like flare-ups. But they navigated with the tools they'd forged. Honest words over whiskey, hands held through the gales. One spring evening, as cherry blossoms dusted the bridge, Ethan dropped to one knee on their ritual walk. Not with diamonds, but a simple band etched with coordinates. The bar's latitude, their first kiss's longitude. "Marry me, Casey Malone." Not for show, but for us, the mess, the magic. Casey's laugh bubbled, tears glinting. "Hell yes, you sentimental fool." They sealed it there, against the rail, the Hudson whispering blessings. Years later, the rusty anchor stood as legend. A safe harbor in a gentrified tide, walls bearing photos of weddings and wakes. Ethan and Casey, gray at the temples but unbowed, poured drinks side by side, their love a quiet revolution. The Tomboy Bartender had shed his shields, the millionaire his misjudgments, emerging not unbroken, but beautifully scarred. In the end, it wasn't triumph over betrayal or blaze. It was the humanistic pulse, the choice to love fiercely, to build from ruins, to let truth illuminate rather than incinerate. And in America's vast tapestry, their thread gleamed, Two men, woven tight, against the unraveling world.